Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I want to start today with a bit of a confession. When I read history books or news reports or really any kind of official document, government releases, corporate memos, whatever, I have a very specific default setting. I'm looking for the what?
The facts.
The facts. What happened? What time did it start? Who did what to whom? It's that detective instinct, right? We hunt for the facts.
Which is completely natural. I mean, that's why we read those things. We want the timeline.
Exactly.
Right?
But today, we are looking at a stack of research that suggests that by focusing only on the what, we might be missing the actual story. We're diving into a really fascinating analysis from Shadow Files, specifically their breakdown in episode 6, The Hands That Shape the Pages. And the argument they make is that by the time you're looking at a finalized official document, in this case, this specific 88-page report that online investigators have been tearing apart, the question isn't even about the event anymore.
No, by that point, the event is over. The question becomes, who had the power to frame the narrative?
That's a total shift in perspective. So instead of looking at the car crash, we're looking at who wrote the police report.
And who edited it, and who decided which witnesses to quote.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The source material we have today is, well, it's basically a masterclass in forensic linguistics. These online investigators, they took this 88-page document and they just dismantled it. They weren't looking for clues about the incident itself.
They were looking for clues about the authors.
The authors, yeah. They were hunting for stylistic fingerprints.
I love that term, stylistic fingerprints. But let's clarify what that actually means, because documents don't have literal fingerprints. How do you map a fingerprint on a PDF?
Well, think about how you write versus how a lawyer writes.
Right.
Or how a frantic field agent writes. Documents don't shape themselves. People do. And people have biases, they have anxieties, and maybe most importantly, they have bosses. So the whole premise of this deep dive is that things like authority and hierarchy and just preservation, they physically manifest in the grammar. So if I'm getting this right, the investigators use things like word choice, sentence length, even passive voice to map out the different people inside this single document.
That is the core of it. And what they found, well, it gives us a map of the power dynamics inside the organization.
Okay, so our mission today is to give everyone listening a new set of glasses. We're going to look at how grammar is used as a weapon of defense. We're going to unpack why what isn't in the document is often screaming louder than what is. And we're going to discuss this concept of institutional survival.
It's really a look at the bureaucracy of truth.
Let's start with that central thesis from Shadow Files. They claim that once you reach the stage of a big official report, the primary story is the framing. But isn't that a little cynical? Surely the goal of a report is to report the facts.
In an ideal world, yeah. But the Shadow Files analysis points out that in these high-stakes environments, a document is never the work of a single person sitting in a quiet room typing out the truth. It's a construction, it's a product, and usually it's a product of conflict.
Conflict
Between the people who actually saw the event and the people who have to manage the consequences of the event. The investigators, they looked at these 88 pages, and they asked a simple question. Who sounds confident here? Who sounds nervous?
Who's hedging their bets?
And who is actively running away from the specifics?
Right.
And when they mapped these tone shifts, they found the changes aligned perfectly with organizational roles. It wasn't just, bad writing or random style changes. You could literally hear the different departments fighting for territory on the page.
Okay, let's dig into that clash then. The source material highlights a really specific contrast between what they call field reporting and liability management.
This is one of the starkest findings. So imagine you're on the ground, something goes wrong, you're writing it down immediately. That's your field reporting.
Yeah.
It's direct, it's sensory. I saw smoke, the valve was stuck, I tried to turn it.
It's immediate. It feels like there's a human being standing right there.
It feels like sweat and dirt, as they say. But then you have voice B, the liability management voice.
And this is the voice that comes in later.
Oh yeah, this is the voice of the risk manager or the legal review team. Their job isn't to convey that sensory experience. It's to smooth the edges, to limit exposure.
Okay, can we workshop this?
Yeah.
I really want to hear what that sounds like in practice. Let's say in the field report, an operator writes, Bob forgot to check the pressure gauge and the pipe burst. Simple, clear, assigns cause.
Right. Now run that through the liability management filter. First thing, Bob has to go.
Bob's gone.
Bob is out. You can't blame an individual directly unless you're, very deliberately throwing them under the bus. So Bob becomes the operator.
Okay, the operator forgot to check the pressure gauge. Still pretty clear.
Still too direct. Forgot implies negligence. We can't have that in a legal document. So forgot becomes omitted. Or, even better, you remove the actor entirely.
Ah, okay. So it becomes the pressure gauge check was omitted.
Getting warmer. But omitted still kind of sounds like a mistake, doesn't it? The liability voice wants to make it sound more like a systemic anomaly. So the final version, the one you'd actually see in these 88 pages, might read, procedural appearance regarding gauge monitoring was found to be insufficient, coinciding with a structural integrity failure.
Wow. You need a machete to get through that sentence. A structural integrity failure. You mean the pipe burst.
Exactly. But notice what happened. The human is gone. The mistake is gone. The violence of the burst is gone. Now we're just discussing the abstract concept of procedural adherence. It creates a fog where the truth used to be.
And if you're reading 88 pages of that, it's exhausting. It just numbs you.
That's the point. And this creates what the source calls a negotiated truth. The document isn't a lie, not technically. The gauge wasn't checked. The pipe did break. But the framing has been negotiated between the reality of the field and the safety of the institution.
Negotiated truth.
Yeah.
That is going to stick with me. It's like the truth has been put through a car wash, waxed and buffed until you can't see any of the scratches anymore.
And that buffing process, it happens in the grammar.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the part of this deep dive where we have to talk about the grammar of evasion.
I feel like everyone just had a flashback to a high school English class. But we aren't talking about split infinitives here, are we?
No, we're talking about strategy. The source material zeroes in on the passive voice. Now, usually we're told passive voice is just, weak writing. But in forensic linguistics, especially in these types of documents, passive voice is often a telltale heart for guilt or fear.
Because it functionally deletes the subject of the sentence.
Correct. The shadow files analysis, it tracked where the passive voice spiked in these 88 pages, and it wasn't uniform. The first section, describing the setup, totally active voice. We built this, Team A installed that, the director approved this.
Of course, everyone wants credit when things are going well. I did this.
Exactly. Active voice claims ownership. But as soon as the timeline hits the moment of the incident, the grammar just flips. Suddenly it's not, I pressed the button, it's the button was depressed.
Actions were taken.
Decisions were made.
I joke about using decisions were made with my spouse when I forget to take out the trash like, honey, decisions were made regarding the garbage. But when you see it in a record about a crisis, it's actually really dark.
It is. Because ask yourself, when you write decisions were made, what have you just removed from the universe?
You've removed the decision maker.
You've dissolved accountability.
You've created a world of effects without causes. Things just happen.
Yes. Events occur without human agency. It's like describing a natural disaster instead of a corporate error.
And the source material has a specific name for this, right? Institutional survival language.
Institutional survival language? Yeah. It implies that the institution is using this grammar not just to be vague, but to literally survive.
Yeah.
If you pin a bad decision to a specific name, Director Smith ignored the warning, that person can be fired, they can be subpoenaed.
But you can't subpoena a sentence structure.
Precisely. If decisions were made, well, that's just the system working. It diffuses the blame into the ether. It spreads the toxicity out so thin that no single person gets poisoned.
But, and here's where I want to push back a little. Isn't that just standard corporate speak? I mean, I get emails from my own HR that sound like this. Is it always sinister, or is it just how these people learn to talk?
That's a fair question, and bureaucracy definitely has its own dialect. But the Shadow Files investigators argue that in this specific document, the shift is what matters. It's not that the whole thing is passive, it's that the passive voice is deployed surgically. It only comes out when things get ugly, and that suggests intent. It suggests they know exactly what they're doing.
So the grammar is a map of where the anxiety is.
Yeah.
You could practically see the authors sweating based on how the sentences start to twist and turn.
You can. And it's not just about the words they used. It's also about the people who aren't there at all. The sounds of silence.
This was the part of the research that really crept me out. The missing names.
It's eerie, isn't it? The investigators noticed a pattern with proper nouns. There are certain names that appear all the time. Usually lower-level employees, Technician A, Officer B. You see their names, their actions, their quotes.
They're the main characters in the story.
They're the visible gears. But then there are other people. People who we know were there. People who held the authority who just evaporate. They vanish from the narrative entirely.
And the source mentions that the higher up the hierarchy you go, the more invisible you become in the text.
Absence can be louder than presence. When you have a consistent pattern where the decision makers are systematically written out of the story, or they're only referred to by these vague titles, that points to a hierarchy at work. It's like a reverse spotlight. The darkness tells you where the power is.
Right. I mean, if I'm writing a report and I'm scared of my boss, I'm probably not going to write VP Jones came in and screamed at everyone.
Exactly. You're going to write a managerial consultation occurred, or you're just going to leave it out entirely. And this connects to those strange sign-offs the source mentions.
Oh, the sign-offs without commentary.
Right. You have these sections detailing the negotiated truth, and then a superior just signs off on it. But they don't add a note, they don't clarify it, they just endorse.
It's a rubber stamp on the evasion.
It creates this closed loop. The subordinate writes it vaguely to protect the superior signs it to validate the subordinate, the institution protects itself.
This raises a really disturbing question about the nature of these documents then. We assume they're written to document reality. But based on this, was this document designed to record history, or was it designed to protect a chain of command?
All the evidence points to protection. The hierarchy explains the restraint. It explains the omissions. And chillingly, the source notes that the hierarchy explains why certain obvious questions were never written down in the first place.
That's the most terrifying part to me. It's not just lying about the answers, it's making sure the dangerous questions never even exist on paper.
Because if you ask the question in a written draft, you have to document the answer. Or you have to document that there was no answer. Both are dangerous. So if you never write the question down, the silence protects you.
So, okay, we have an 88-page document. It's full of conflicting voices, passive grammar, strategic holes where powerful people should be. Why write it at all? I mean, if the goal is to hide, why produce a report?
Because they have to. And this brings us to the real purpose of the document. The analysis synthesizes it all down to one word: acceptability.
Acceptability, not truth.
Not truth, no. The 88 pages were written to be acceptable. And the source breaks this down into 3 different levels of acceptable.
Okay, let's go through them. Level 1.
Acceptable to institutions. The document has to look the part. It needs the right formatting, the right jargon, the right headers. It has to signal to the bureaucracy, I am one of you. If it looks amateurish, it just invites more scrutiny.
Makes sense. Level 2.
Acceptable to superiors. We've touched on this. It cannot implicate the people who have the power to reject the document. It has to navigate the internal politics. It has to be signed off by the very people it might otherwise incriminate. It's a survival mechanism for the writer.
And the 3rd level.
This is the big one. It has to be acceptable to the future.
The future.
Think about the mindset of the person writing this. They know this isn't just for today. They know this might be pulled up in 5 years. It might be read by a congressional committee. It might be read by a grand jury or by historians.
That sounds absolutely paralyzing.
It is. Imagine trying to write a sentence while a hypothetical prosecutor from the year 2030 is looking over your shoulder. You become incredibly cautious. You hedge everything. You avoid definitive statements because definitive statements can be disproven.
So you build fortress out of paper. You try to make it bulletproof against whatever the future might throw at it.
Exactly. You're trying to create a record that won't collapse under scrutiny. But, and here's the ultimate irony of this whole deep dive, while the authors tried to control the narrative through all these techniques, the second that document enters the public sphere, that control just becomes an illusion.
Because of people like the investigators in Shadow Files.
Right. The very things they use to hide the truth, the stylistic fingerprints, are the things that reveal the truth. We can see the fear in the passive voice. We can see the hierarchy in the missing names. They tried to hide the struggle for control, but the document is the struggle.
It's like the fortress itself tells you there's something valuable inside worth hiding.
That's a great way to put it. You can redact a name, you can burn a specific memo, but you cannot hide the culture of an organization because it just bleeds into the syntax. It's like an accent. You can't help but speak with the accent of your environment.
So in a way, they told us everything. They told us who they were and what they were afraid of just by how they tried to say nothing.
They revealed the institutional anxiety. And for the investigators, that turned a boring, dry, bureaucratic report into, well, a psychological thriller.
It really changes how you look at a press release or a corporate apology, doesn't it?
It should. It absolutely should.
So let's wrap this up. We started by asking who had the power to frame the narrative? And the answer seems to be the people who knew how to use language to survive.
The 88 pages are less of a recording of history and more of an artifact of negotiation and liability management. It is a fossil record of a bureaucracy trying to save itself.
And for you listening right now, here is the final thought to chew on. The next time you see an official statement, maybe it's from a company in crisis, maybe it's a government filing, or maybe it's just a confusing email from your own HR department explaining a policy change. Don't just read the facts.
Look for the fingerprints. Look for where the active voice suddenly switches to passive.
Look for who is missing from the story. And ask yourself, is this document telling me what happened, or is it telling me what was acceptable to say?
Because the silence is often where the real story is hiding.
That's it for this deep dive. Go read between the lines, everyone. We'll see you next time.